Jason Falinski, thank you for speaking to us on ABC News. Now, we're seeing some updates to health advisories for the Northern Beaches. Most recently, we're hearing that masks should be worn at all times indoors for the next 72 hours for that area, in addition to the closing of 21 beaches and people being encouraged to stay at home for the next 3 days. What's your view of the steps being taken to contain this cluster on the Northern Beaches?
Thank you, Miriam. Look, I think the community is rightly concerned about what's happened here. Even through the pandemic, we were relatively free of any traces of the virus. So for this to occur just a week out from Christmas is certainly something that has taken the community by shock. But it has responded in the appropriate way. We've seen record numbers of people getting tests. We've seen people voluntarily self-isolating at home, and the advisory to wear masks. My observation today was most people going out were wearing masks. So we're doing everything that we need to do to make sure that this gets under control as quickly as possible.
We've also had some developments around trying to track down the sources of the recent cases that we've seen. There was also a case in southwestern Sydney, and suspicion around, the potential for airline crew and quarantine procedures for them. We've also seen today 13 fines have been put to airline staff who have been found in breach of those quarantine procedures. Are we doing enough to try and stop fresh outbreaks from occurring?
Well, I think the Premier put it very well today when she made the point that we want as many Australians to be able to come home as possibly can for Christmas. That means enabling flight crews to be able to operate in a manner and form that makes sense. You can't have flight crews in quarantine hotels for 14 days. The airline industry will just simply stop flying to Australia if that were the case. We have had rules in place that allow people to self-isolate at home. It is disappointing to see that some people have flouted those rules, and in doing so have put my community at risk, especially just before Christmas. Are we doing enough? The Premier has made the point that she will be reviewing, or those processes were already under review with the New South Wales Police. We'll continue to make sure that any review improves the system, but most importantly enables as many Australians as possible to come home for Christmas, and allows Australians that need to go overseas, whether it was to care for an elderly parent or a child who was sick and not well, and that was literally the only way for them to do so. And that's the majority of people who have been leaving Australia since March. That's been their situation. So this is in many ways simple compassion, but for one person potentially we don't know yet what occurred here, but it is increasingly looking like it was a person flouting those rules.
Now, as you point out, for people there, it was quite a shock, I suppose, given that the Northern Beaches had been relatively unaffected by clusters in previous months. How are people in the community feeling at this point, given that, this has moved really quickly from the cases that we saw on Wednesday to today and the steps that have been put in place? How are people feeling about this, particularly coming into Christmas?
Yeah, Marion, that's a really good question. And look, one of the reasons that the cases have accelerated so quickly is because the community responded so quickly to getting tested. So the result of the New South Wales Health making so many tests available and opening so many clinics so quickly, and the community responding to that need, has been that you've seen so many cases identified. And that is the great hope that we will be able to contain this outbreak to the Northern Beaches, and hopefully by Monday be able to say that we dodged yet another bullet. And look, the Australian, or the New South Wales, track and trace system is globally recognised as one of the best in the world. The Biden administration has specifically reached out to the New South Wales government to see what it can learn in implementing its response to COVID in the United States. That is something that we have been incredibly lucky in this state and in this country to have here. So the very professional response by the Department of Health, by the New South Wales government, and I think the community on the Northern Beaches as well, has ensured that this outbreak is as contained as you could possibly hope.
Liberal member for Mackellar, Jason Falinski, thank you very much for speaking with us here on ABC News.
Thank you for your time, Mariam. Really appreciate it.